Hey, what's going on, everybody? Did you panda back and actually talk about something else? Did I miss something else? It's about what you expect. Yeah, letter fucking 5. Who would have thunk it? Like, honestly, is anybody surprised that this happened? I certainly am not. Except, I would just like to clarify one thing right now before we continue. I don't want to keep retreading old ground, okay? But for anybody that just stumbled upon this video that hasn't been here for letters 1 through 4, the basic overall theme that Christian's letters have been sort of taking on. They preach on about the dimensional merge and how they're the astral goddess Blue Heart and that they're going to come down and that the dimensional merge is going to happen one day and deliver us all unto, heaven in a silver chariot. Or at least, the alternate Earth that is going to, showcase the best aspects of the dimensional merge in its entirety. And it gets kind of samey after a while, like letters 1 through 4. However, letter 5 actually surprised me a little bit. I say that because it sheds light on the fact that Barbara apparently had sent a letter to Christian while they were in prison, as well as the fact that they, shed some light upon the fact that they, how prison life is for Christian, because for the most part, none of the letters have been very personable in that sense. It's just basically the ravings of a madman, but now we're sort of getting a little bit of a clearer picture as to Christian's supposed feelings on the matter. One thing I want to make mention right now is the fact that, the letter, the handwriting does not seem consistent with letters 1 through 4. Something about it doesn't really ring true to Christian to me. It seems neater, but also the style is a little bit different. Which, again, maybe I'm digging too deep into this, but at the same time, Christian's handwriting was kind of sloppy. A lot more legible than I was expecting, certainly, but, sloppier in the sense that, you just look at it. One of the letters, I think it was the last letter, that's more, I guess, evident to the quality of the paper that they were using, but the actual, lineage of, the sentence structure was tilting downwards, either left or right. And granted, a lot of the paper that was being used was not lined like college-ruled paper that you would expect to see, a handwritten note. It's not like what you would use in high school to take notes. This was, more like computer paper. And there's, a distinction here, because this last letter, it was written on notebook paper, which is surprising. I mean, where is Christian getting this paper? Are, the prison guards just giving Christian whatever they have, handy? And it's just oh, yeah, here you go. And Christian just uses it. Anyway, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a digital... Let's see. It's called a virtual desktop. And basically it's a invisible screen that only I can see. I would show you what it looked like from my point of view, but, not very important. But yeah, if you want to know, we are going to go ahead and review this. Please forgive me for my indiscretions. I'm still getting used to virtual desktop and various other things. This is entirely new technology for me. I don't typically use virtual desktop unless I'm listening to music. However, I managed to pin basically both pages of the letter to my wrist here. Now, you can't see it because it's invisible on your end, but on my end, I can actually read it, and I set the opacity so I can sort of look through the page at the viewfinder here. Anyway, it's only 2 pages long, not very long. There's nothing really to compare it against because, some of the other letters that have been written, usually either it was initiated only of Christian's own accord, like in the case of sending a letter to Null. I'm not entirely sure if Kengel actually sent Christian a letter, but the fact that Christian knew their address and knew where to send the letter, it's a distinct possibility, especially given the fact that they were answering some of Kengel's questions. Obviously, letters 3 and 4, that was initiated by an external party that decided to reach out to Christian, probably some tweens out there that decided that they wanted a moment of fame, just a little footnote in Christry. Anyway, I guess I'll just go ahead and get into it. So this is dated October 25th, 2021, which is, just like a day after the last letter. Alright, let's see. Here's the problem. It's been redacted, obviously. Dear so-and-so, thank you for the kindness and respect in your letter. Yours outside of my attorney, and Barbara, is the first letter I had received from a follower who lives in Virginia. Well, overall, and in short, the staff treat me well enough. At start, the genuine positive vibrations and spiritual energy really sold this place well. Then I've experienced the attitudes and bad habits from some of the real jerk-ops and really noisy neighbors after my body was relocated from medical to booking. But the food is mostly good. The commissary has good items on offer, and I've enjoyed the rec room a few times. This facility is 2 out of 5 stars. I've hardly made friends here, but more like kind allies with the more positive staff, and I have continued to work in my goddess responsibilities and duties out of body. I am the full reincarnation of Jesus Christ, complete with all of the memories from year 0 to physical ascension to heaven, changed my appearance, and walked the earth more in my immortal life, living many different books of identities and lives until 1389 when the universe was divided and I was fully transported forward and backward throughout time, space, and dimensions to fly through the chaotic rainbow's apex in 2003, and then to be reborn on February 24th, 1982. Firstly, I do not look upon the term troll as a negative, as there are good trolls, bad people, and bad trolls people, and all have an innate want to patrol and observe, comment on others. Regardless, the ones that are wicked are the haters, fakers, and the darkest of demonics, and sinners who are toxic to the majority. A lot of what has happened is happening right with and all around you, and is to happen, are covered between the last couple of books in the Old Testament of any Bible, as well as how I described the dimensional merge in early 2018. Although the whole picturesque event is popularly referred to as the Day of Judgment, this is actually comprised of the dimensional merge, the recombining of the divided universe, which has been completed. The collective shift, relocating the majority to the recombined Earth of Universe 1C-211987 from this 1218 Earth here. That is more spiritually progressed and happening now, and my second coming, where I shall descend at my temple and fully, physically relocate the majority to our recombined Earth with the Science Temple, as well as other secret buildings, artifacts, statues, etc., leaving behind the toxic minority on the failing 1218 Earth to burn. So-and-so, thou art among the neutral good, and shall transcend with everyone, so thou hast nothing to fear, especially as thou continues to be as good as possible as thou hast done so. Go forth in peace and clarity, by my power, glory, and authority, as God, so-and-so. Be safe and well. Miss Jesus, Christine Weston Chandler Science, the Goddess Blue Heart and Lord Savior and Messiah and God of all. Well, that's all she wrote. So, that was certainly a interesting read, to say the least. I don't know. It's I don't know. What's interesting is that they mentioned that their stay in jail isn't that bad, which is shocking to me because Christian is legendary for complaining about fairly minor things. But I guess being locked in a specialized room, it's given them enough time to sort of reflect on everything that's happened. I'm very curious to hear what Barbara actually sent to Christian, because you gotta wonder, what is Barbara's mental state in all this, and what would she have to say to Christian, right now? Is it favorable? Is it disfavorable? Is she going to testify against him in court? Like, see, here's the problem with Barb. Enough people out there think that there is no dementia, that she's like perfectly normal, and that she's just putting up an act to get sympathy out of people. Because more sympathy allegedly will mean more contributions as far as donations to the Patreon, various other places where Chrischan is active, you know, as far as like begging for money. I'm not talking about active as in just their activity, because plenty of artists and voice actors and people that were like a part of My Little Pony, Doopy Doo-Over from like Planet Dolan, they got creeped out by Chrischan sort of like, you know, voicing like, you know, unwarranted comments towards them and trying to get close to them, and then they would also bear the brunt of like various trolls, tweens, and other nefarious people, like, you know, dogpiling them, and they would just block Chrischan because they didn't want that. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw this activity following this person. They're just like, I don't want, and they just, you know, acted accordingly. So their stay in jail isn't that bad. The food isn't that bad, even though they were clearly complaining about it in a prior video, or like, you know, they were saying that the meatballs weren't of like, you know, to the standard or quality, and that the chicken was dry, which sucks. But I'm actually interested to see what like kind of food they serve in jail other than the loaf. Other than that, like, the fact that they have funds to spend at the commissary is impressive to me, because it's like, is somebody actually contributing to Chrischan right now? Like, they mentioned their personal, like, you know, inmate account that people could, you know, donate funds to. Is anybody out there contributing to this thing? Because if you are, on one hand, I can't fault you, but at the same time, that's kind of not good considering what Chrischan himself is guilty of, okay? And, you know, it's not, I would not advise it, all right? You don't want to be a part of this thing. This is something for you to, like, you know, stick with me, like right here on the sidelines. We can watch this thing the way through together. You don't have to involve yourself in this, okay? It's not worth it. Okay, like all of the negativity and like hateocracy and the chaos, the abject chaos that has unfolded around this man's life, you don't need to be a part of that. Okay, you can be right here by me. We can be watching this thing together. But the minute that you involve yourself in all this, you're going to be noticed by the trolls, commentators like me, various other people, blah 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 blah. You don't want to be a part of that. Okay, like take it from me. And Chrischan as like an individual, you don't want to engage with them. They are cringeworthy. Like, you already know since July, going into August, what they're capable of. It ain't good. Anyway. But regardless of what I say, you're going to do whatever you got to do. Because, you know, presumably you are a adult male or female, or maybe you're a young adult. Maybe you're just you're an up-and-coming, like, upstart into the world, and you're trying to make your own path, and maybe you would join one of these legions of tweens that have a morbid fascination with Chrischan, because they are truly a fascinating individual, but not for the reasons that you might think. Anyway, as drab and dreary as, like, you know, standing out in the rain is, I think we're due for a change of scenery, so back in a sec. So when you look at everything, you gotta wonder, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I'd say the egg, because breakfast comes before lunch. But wheeling it back to Chrischan, which came first, Chrischan or the trolls? Now, obviously, you'd tell me that the trolls would have come first, because trolling is not necessarily a new, like, phenomena. People have been doing it for a while. Here's the thing, though. Like, I'm actually curious, like, just thinking about it all. Because you gotta remember, Chrischan is the real OG. Without Chrischan, you never would have seen the rise of the Kiwi Farms to its seat of prominence as it is today. You never would have had the Quickie. You never would have had all of the sagas that involved Clyde Cash, Blue Spike, Liquid Chris, Tito. Like, you know, the list goes on. But at the same time, there would have been probably some other dumbass that would have come along that Kiwi Farms would have attacked just for them being unusual or maybe arrogant or something to that effect. But yeah, wheeling it back to Chrischan. Like I said in my last video, this is going to be a slow burn. And these letters like 1 and 5 have to be perhaps the most interesting to me. 2 through 4, little tidbits of information, but largely it just comes back to the whole preaching of the dimensional merge, which a lot of people actually got angry at Christian for, because like Christian would conflate real life disasters and tragedies with evidence that the dimensional merge was definitely going to be happening any day now. And it got to the point where people were actually writing to Christian, and it's like, excuse me, but my, husband died in this. Don't use your fucking cockamamie bullshit to, don't use this tragedy to substantiate your cockamamie bullshit theory about what's going to happen. And what was it? There was the lettuce, E. coli sort of outbreak that, had ravaged a lot of the agricultural world. There were the tsunamis in Indonesia and the Philippines that were just, all of this stuff happening. Natural disasters, the forest fires out in California. Anything that was sort of a disturbance out in the greater world was used by Christian as evidence that one day the dimensional merge was going to happen. And he likens it to the rapture, because that's the only thing that came to mind when Christian mentioned, this is all written pardon me, this is all written in the book of Revelation of the Old Testament. And it's like, no, Chris, you can't conflate the two. Although that's truly a disturbing thought. Imagine if Christian becoming an idiot savant, or savant, if you prefer, they somehow uncover powers like Tetsuo from Akira, and they have omnipotent power now, and they can initiate the dimensional merge as they see fit, and they can decide who lives, who dies. Man, that is truly a disturbing thought to me. Thankfully, it will probably never happen. And if it does, I'll eat my own hat. But yeah, the point is, all of this to say that these letters are going to continue to come out. There's nothing been really tangible to endear me to Chris. I sympathize with them, but more because I feel like the ultimate goal here is that they need to be in a mental health care facility, okay? I don't think prison's for them. If they're stuck in prison, as long as they don't get shanked by their, one of their inmate buddies or something like that, then that's better than the alternative, them dying. But if they get out of prison, some sort of loophole in the system or something happens, they're going to be out on the fucking streets. Barbara isn't going to be there when he comes out, I don't think. Maybe she will, for a year or two. But she's looking pretty old and frail. She's pretty much like Skeletor now. And when she goes, Christian's life as he knows it now, it's going to go by the wayside. It's a truly tragic and sad tale. But, I can't really feel that bad for Chris, because Christian has done nothing to help their prospects. Anybody that came along and tried to help, hell, the fucking head of Kiwi Farms was willing to be there to vouch for Chris and give him money, a care package in the form of thousands of dollars. And what does Christian do? Well, he goes back to doing the same dumbassery he's been doing the rest of his life. Confiding in the wrong people like Isabella Redijanki, and biting the hand that was feeding him, and Null had enough. And I have to say, Null was pretty much doing the Lord's work. I said that made him a good person. Good person in the moment. I'm not entirely sure of his mode of character, because he seems like a bit of an edgelord, but at the same time, he probably felt like he was somewhat responsible for the state of affairs that Christian found himself in, and decided to step in to help, which is a lot more than I could say for most of you all, and, anybody else. Me included, so don't think I'm castigating you unfairly. But, remember, I don't know if you all were, a part of the trolling. If you were, that's pretty bad. I think Liquid Chris has got to be, the one saga that was, for the most part, just harmless, pleasant fun. It was just, for the laughs. There was no real malice there. It was just, some pretender out there pretending to be Christian for the goofs and gaffs of it. And that's something that I can respect. But at least comparative to, like, you know, Clyde Cash, Blue Spike, various other people. But, you know, let's be honest here. At the end of the day, what were the trolls doing? They were castigating an autistic, mentally ill man. And, you know, just because they had autism, I know plenty of autistic people that can have a functional life and be a contributing member of society. They have jobs, they have lives, they have interests. And sometimes when you encourage them enough, they can actually spread their wings and be very good at a particular thing, or maybe a set of hobbies. You know, Christian could have gone down that path if their parents were just a little bit more involved in their life. And maybe if they didn't have such a sheltered upbringing. But they didn't get that. So, I know I keep flip-flopping here. Christian is not a good person, but at the same time, like, they were sort of set up to be this way. Like, they weren't necessarily a good or bad person when they came to early adulthood. But the tipping point was really when the trolls were just incessantly sort of dumping on Christian. And eventually that sort of manifested into Christian having a period where they were incredibly bitter. And it bled into their work, you know, like Sonichu. The theme became less about, you know, happy-go-lucky adventures at the cost of, like, you know, saving the world. It's like more like death became a recurrent theme. It became almost like a fantasy fulfillment for Chris, because Christian would basically take whatever troll had wronged him, or people, even in his real life, that had wronged him, and have some sort of unspeakable tragedy occur to them. I think the most graphic was like a kangaroo court trial, where they had like a fucking kid like drill somebody, like, you know, to death, you know, or like, you know, use their telekinetic abilities to crush the person's heart. And it was like, goddamn, if their art skills were just a little bit more, I think some maybe Dark Horse Comics, maybe, like, you know, some of the edgier comic book houses out there might be interested. But yeah. So I say all this because, as I said in my last video, this is going to be a slow burn, a gradual decline. I don't foresee anything significant happening in the future, but because it's part and parcel to what I do on this channel, I'm going to continue to cover it, because I, for one, am interested to see how this is actually going to end. Maybe Christian gets let out. And if the homeless saga happens in the near future, I'm not entirely sure how many people are actually going to feel bad for Christian. Like, who's going to be there to help Christian? Because porking their mom, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, including me. They really belong in a home of some kind. A halfway house. Even fucking Lucas Werner, this loser out in fucking Seattle, he's in a halfway house now. And, like, you know, Christian, at the very least, can have some sort of a safe place for them to live, free from being tormented by the trolls, the jerk-ops as he calls them, anything else like that. Anyway, before we end this video, let's just think about this for a second, shall we? So before I end the video here, I just wanted to, like, go over the ins and outs of that letter, more specifically when Christian mentions their time in prison, because apart from a few mentions here and there in prior letters, we never really got the full scope of what Christian was actually dealing with right now, which is, you know, something that a lot of people might be interested in. You know, like, they mentioned the food not being that great in an earlier letter, but in this letter they say it's, you know, it's alright, it's mostly good. Like, they mentioned the commissary, and I already mentioned, like, you know, people possibly contributing to Christian's, you know, inmate account, which makes me question how many people are contributing, if any, and to what amounts. Like $1 here, like a few cents there. I'm curious. But yeah. So they mentioned, like, going from medical to booking, and I'm curious as to why Christian would be in medical in the first damn place. It's entirely possible that, given their lifestyle choices of eating fast food, junk food, 2-liter bottles of soda, Christian probably has some form of diabetes, either type 1 or type 2. And maybe, possibly, they were in examination because their body is starting to reject years of abuse, on top of which they need, insulin shots, possibly. I'm not entirely sure about Christian's physical health or well-being, but I can, basically speculate, based on what I'm aware, that it's probably not that great. Granted, I already told you my own personal theory. Like, I'm convinced that Christian is going to live to about 100. You know why? Well, think about it. They've been living off of TV dinners and, McDonald's, and basically a lot of foods that are packed with preservatives. And all of those preservatives, at some point, are going to absorb into their body. And it probably already has. Like, over the course of their span of their lifetime, they have been eating all these preservative-packed foods. They have basically become packed full of preservatives themselves. They have absorbed it into their body. That's why when they cut open their taint, they didn't die of an infection, because the infection could not continue into the body. It was stopped because there was nothing but preservatives between it and the rest of the body to consume, so it just kind of died right there. And it's for that reason that I'm absolutely convinced that Christian is going to live forever. But hopefully not. Jokes aside, they probably have some glaring health effects, and now that they're incarcerated and on the inside, they're not eating the healthiest food available. So they're going to be predisposed to, some negative side effects of their slovenly lifestyle up to this point. Anyway. What's interesting is they refer to the cops as jerk-cops, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure that any communications that leave prison, like coming in or going out, probably is subject to review by, the authorities, either somebody in administration or maybe the cops themselves. Well, I should say the prison guards. I don't know why I keep saying cops. It's because Christian got me on that. Jerk-cops. They probably review that shit before it gets shipped out, you know what I mean? Or, when something gets received, it probably gets reviewed. And I speculated that, at least half of the letters are probably thrown out for whatever reason, but some make it through. Even fewer are responded to by Christian themselves. And, it's funny because I'm wondering what happened between the prison guards and Christian refer to some of them as jerk-cops. Did they take away his privileges because he was too noisy or uncooperative? Because, you gotta understand something. Christian has a bad habit of just fucking basically taking everything as a personal slight to themselves. I mean, remember the Love Quest? When they were going out in public and basically stalking pretty women, they were just loitering out the mall or setting up an attraction sign in public areas. And somebody of authority would come over and basically say, "You gotta be stopping that, you hear?" And Christian would see it as an attack on his person because he was just trying to find true love. It's kind of like Mary Lee Walsh when she came over, tearing up Christian's sign and saying, "Oh, you're soliciting, you need to stop that." Christian gave her, curse ye ha me ha, and, acted like, "Oh, this horrible witch of a woman is trying to, stop me from my love quest. I'm just trying to find my true and honest sweetheart, and she's getting in my way." So Christian has a bad habit of embellishing or exaggerating fairly minor things that happen on the daily. Granted, they have the mind of a child, so, I've known some pretty mentally infantile people, and they take everything to heart, and they see a mountain out of a molehill. So yeah, that's not too surprising. What I'm interested more is, they mention noisy neighbors, but they also mention the fact that, that they haven't really made friends there, but they've made allies. And I'm curious what they mean by allies. When they say, positive staff, do they mean, the janitor? Or maybe, the nurse at the medical wing? Or, so on? It begs a lot of questions. And there's not too much here to, parse over. Maybe I'm digging too deep into this, but at the same time, it does beg the question how somebody like Christian would adapt to prison life. But anyway, like I was saying before, There's not a whole lot here for me to go over, and I don't think it's really worth your time to hear me, like, speculate endlessly on whatever bullshit comes to mind. So I'll just leave you with this. I am adamant and firm in the belief that Christian belongs in a special needs home, assisted care facility, maybe even a mental ward for observation, and anything that could sort of help Christian address some of the mental problems that they've developed over the years. They really need to get over this inclination of theirs that they are going to rely on other people for help. Because notice how they've never really worked a job in their life, maybe for a couple months here and there, but nothing substantial to have given them marketable skills. And then, like, you know, the earlier videos when they were still living under Bob's care because Bob was bringing in the money, I think he was getting royalties for a special invention of his when he worked at General Electric. But, you know, Christian, when he was the man of the house, their solution to their problems was basically reaching out to, like, the various trolls. Like, the same trolls that had, like, mercilessly fucked with them for years. He was going to make a series of begging videos, sell their services, making videos and such like that to whoever would pay for it. And the trolls, out of either a sense of obligation or, you know, guilt, would send them money. And Christian was living off of that. But then Christian became entitled to that money. Like, you know, you saw how they acted when they got kicked out of the house. You know, the no contact order came and they were told not to approach Barbara. Do not initiate contact with Barbara. That includes taking fucking money out of her account. You know, they just kind of took $750 fucking dollars and went for a shopping spree at the mall, which should tell you all how out of touch with reality they were. They just thought that money was going to magically materialize out of thin air from their Patreon, GoFundMe, and whatever other places out there were available to them. And yeah, so I hope prison does something positive for Christian. I will say this. I would have been expecting Christian to, like, bitch and moan and whine and dine on, like, a number of different complaints about life on the inside. And they haven't really done that. Granted, what we got was the ravings of a lunatic, but I guess that's, you know, I guess they're a bit more dignified, even if it's sort of a source of an escapism for them. A bit more dignified than I would have expected. Granted, they are a literal motherfucker, so I can't feel too bad for them. But yeah, let's hope that if they get let out and they're on the street, then they're going to get into a halfway house or some sort of mental care facility. And something positive comes from all this, because yeah, it ain't looking too good for Chris right now. And their court date is currently November 1st. So their current court date isn't too far away. You know, I'm going to be very interested to see what's going to happen. Anyway, I think I blather on about this for long enough. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Till next time, guys, take care and peace. I hope you have a better one. Hey fellas, thanks for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Would you care to hit that like button and subscribe for more? I greatly appreciate it.